Hello, thank you if you're watching the replay, thank you very much. I'm about to block a new poncho, so I thought I would show you how I do that. So we're just going to give, right, so if you're joining me, tell me where you're watching from today. We're just going to give it a few seconds to see if anyone else is joining us live. So my name is Anniken Allis and I'm going to block this poncho for you today. It's been waiting for blocking since before Easter and I just keep not getting around to it. So I'm going to just get all my stuff ready and then we'll get started. Just need a couple of blocking wires as well. So I'm going to crack on for those who are already here and for those who are watching the replay. It's a bit annoying to wait. So thank you for joining me. So I knitted this poncho. I'll tilt the camera down more when I actually start blocking it. But I knitted this poncho. It's been finished since before Easter and I've just not gotten around to actually blocking it. So I thought it was a good time to do that this afternoon. Now it is partly stocking stitch and it's partly lace and it's knitted in the round. Now normally if it was, depending on the shaping, if it was shaped so I could actually block it flat, I would do, because it would dry a lot quicker. But it's not, it's knitted in the round and there aren't enough stitches for it to dry flat, for it to be blocked flat. So I have to block it kind of folded over like that. So it means it's going to take a little bit longer to dry. But before, so I've woven in all the ends and then I've soaked it in lukewarm water for about 10 minutes. And then I've rolled it up into a towel, squeezed out as much water as I can, and now I'm going to block it. So I'm going to use my Knit Pro knit blockers. That's what they look like. I really like these, especially for curved. Can you see those? They've got like 2 teeth in them. They're really good especially for curved edges. And then I'm also going to use pins. So I use the Knit Pro T-pins. They're quite solid, they're not sort of too bendy, so they're quite easy to use. I also have got a couple of blocking wires which I'm going to use as well, I think. So I'm going to tip the camera down a bit so you can see what I'm doing. Now my dog is asleep on the sofa, which is almost next to me. So I just hope that he doesn't wake up and start barking. I'm just going to open the curtains to get a bit more light in. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start with this curved edge here at the neckline. Now I don't want that curved edge to be much bigger than it actually is. So I don't want to stretch this too much. Now I haven't done any shaping around the neckline. So the front of the neck is the same as the back of the neck. I haven't done any short row shaping or anything like that because I wanted to keep this fairly simple. So I'm just going to make sure that just the front and the back kind of lines up. And then I'm going to use these. These are ideal for curved edges. If they're very, very curved, then you need to use the smaller ones. But for sort of gently curving edges, these are ideal. You can get blocking wires that curve. I don't like them because I find them too bendy and too kind of flimsy, and I've tried at least a couple of brands. Okay, now I was just thinking I actually want to put a wire down here. Now one thing you've got to be careful blocking it like this is that you will get a sort of bit of a crease here. So you can, after it's dried, you can kind of put it on an ironing board and just press that crease out. But what I should do before I pin this whole top edge is just slide the blocking wire inside the fabric. So I don't want to go in and out at the edge of the fabric because that will not look very good. So I'm just going to take that through to the inside of the fabric, so that's inside the fabric, so I can stretch this out a little bit later on. Okay, I'm just going to do it on this side as well. Right. The reason I didn't block this straight away when I finished it was when I finished it, it was really, really hot. and I was kind of a bit fed up because I thought, oh, we're already going straight into summer. Means I won't be able to wear this because it'll be too hot. Unfortunately, since then it's got colder again, so I'm pretty sure I won't be able to wear it. I would have preferred to have kept the hot weather, but it's cooled down a bit last week, so we haven't got the hot weather we have over Easter. I'm just going to put a couple of more blocking mats on the other side, and then I will change the camera angle a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll do my best to answer. Right, so let me just angle the camera over a bit. There we go. Okay, so now what I want to do, so at the bottom here I've got these lace, you can kind of see it's almost like lace panels going down, and at the bottom there are kind of picot edges. They are big double yarn overs, so they're fairly easy to see. So I want to kind of match the front and the back ones of those and pin them out together. So I'm just going to sit down here next to the camera. So I'm going to use, get some pins ready. Before I do that, the one thing I have to make sure now is that I have the same number of these picots. They're not actually picots, but big, I think they're actually triple yarn overs, not double yarn overs. I have to kind of try and match the front and the back ones. And make sure I have the same number on the front as I do on the back. Which is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to just try and, sometimes that takes me like a couple of attempts to do, so I'm just going to try and make sure that they line up. So I think that probably lines up fairly well. So I'm just going to put a pin. So I've actually now got the yarn over at the front and the back, and I just pin them out together. So I'm just going to do one like that, and then I'm just going to do, I'm not going to do every single one, I'm just going to do about every, I'm going to try and make sure they line up. Let me just, there we go. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to pin every single one straight away because I want to make sure that I have the same number on the front and on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to do about, so I'm going to make sure they match up, and I'm going to do about every fourth one. And then to make sure it doesn't get kind of lopsided, I'm going to do this side as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the fourth one on this side. So this is just kind of roughly pinning it out. And then I'm going to go back, just turn the camera a bit, there we go. So I'm going to go back this side. So what I want to do is I want to stretch this edge out before I start pinning the bottom edge properly. But I can't really do that unless I know exactly where this wire has to go, where I have to kind of fold it here. That makes sense? I know what I mean, but I'm not sure it made much sense. But you'll see. Right, so I'm going to match these up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin that one out. And then, let's have a look. 1. Okay, so there's one right on the bend here. Right on, I'm actually bending it on one. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct, but we'll try that for now. Okay, so I'm just going to put a pin here. So I'm going to stretch this out more here later, but I'm actually going to just finish that side. So if I, oh, hang on, turn the camera around again. So, right, that's the right side. So, I'm going to do the same thing here. One. 2, 3. It's really easy to think you like matching the top and bottom fabric and then actually realise once you've pinned it all out that you haven't. which is why I'm being a bit more careful on this one, so I don't have to do it twice. Okay, perfect. Right, I'm just going to have to put another mat here, I think. There is actually a triple yarn over right on the edge here, right to where I'm kind of folding. So now I'm gonna stretch this bit out. So that may mean I have to adjust this a little bit along here just to make sure it's stretched out enough. So I'm going to use these along the edge here. And I also want to stretch this lengthwise. There we go. So I put that along the edge there, and then I'm going to do the same on the opposite edge. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing along here. Now, what I want to check before I go any further is that this edge here is the same length as the edge on the other side. So I'm just going to get my tape measure out and measure that quickly. So 65. And then I'm going to make sure that this edge here, this edge is also 65. And that one is a little bit shorter. Actually about 4 centimeters shorter. So I'm going to just take these out and stretch this bit as well. Right, let me just check. Yeah, that's roughly, whoops, that's about right, I think. Adjusting this fabric a little bit. There we go. Okay. So now make sure that the edges on both sides. I'll give you like a big view of this when I've finished pinning it out. So now, let me see whether the camera. Okay, so now I'm going to find each of these triple yarn overs and pin them out. Should have done this first one right over here while I was on the other side of the camera, but that's okay. Oops. So I don't want to pin out like all the ones on one side first and then do all the ones on the other side, because that might mean I can't stretch them all evenly. So I'm just gonna, I think I'm actually going to start in the middle. Just apologies for moving the camera around, but I just got to try and make sure you can all see what I'm doing. So this is like my middle point, I think, roughly. So I'm going to start from the middle. So I've done 2 on that side, and I'm going to do 2 on this side. You can use curved blocking wires for this if you prefer. I don't like curved blocking wires. I just found they're too flimsy, they're curved too much, and I've tried at least 2 different brands, so I tend to not use curved blocking wires at all. And even though my straight blocking wires are actually quite curvy, which bit is that? That's that bit. They're not quite curvy enough for this. So there aren't that many points to pin out on this one, so I can do it with just, right, let me just check which one. That one. That one. So luckily these are really big triple yarn overs at the bottom of each one of these. I don't know whether you can see it. You've got like the shaping lines here, which you may not be able to see actually. But it's fairly obvious when you look at it close up. But in the middle of each one of those sections, each repeat. So that's a repeat. That's a repeat, and in the middle of those, each repeat is a big triple yarn over, which makes it really easy to see where you're going to pin it out. or it makes it easy to see on the top layer of the fabric. It's not so easy to see the underneath layer, but okay, so I've done the middle section, so now I'm moving further out to the side. Later on, before I finish, I will just measure, because all the points should be the same distance from the top edge. So I will check that once I've finished pinning all of these points out. Okay, so I think that's the last one there. And then I'm just going to put one in on the edge over here because I've left one out there. Okay, I tend to stretch things as much as I can. With garments you have to be careful and make sure you're obviously stretching it to the correct measurements that the pattern says. For shawls, I just stretch it as much as I can. This is a poncho, so as long as it's big enough for me, that's fine. But you obviously want to make sure that you check the measurements. Okay, so I'm going to move around and just do this final bit here. Sometimes you find that the bits you've already pinned out haven't been stretched quite enough. If you find that you are, when you're pinning it out on one side, especially towards the end, that you find that it's lifting on the other end of the fabric, that means you've pinned it out, you've stretched it too much. So you need to, so you can see this is actually starting to, this bit here is actually starting to lift a little bit, which means I've stretched it a bit too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go along the top edge and just release it very slightly. Okay, I think that's it. Right, so let me just do that. So this bit right down the bottom, down here, the blocking mat is actually lifting just very slightly, which means I've probably stretched it just a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just release it. So I'm just taking these off and putting them back in again. I'm not letting them release too much, just a little bit. There we go. Just so that it just releases the tension a little bit on this fabric. And I think that's it. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to measure from various points of this around the neck down to the edge. I'm not going to do every single one, I'm just going to do a few just to make sure that it looks, just make sure that it's all the same distance. It looks okay. I'm also going to double check the side edges here to make sure they're okay. I've got a couple of stitch markers here which I don't actually need anymore. They were just, I'm going to leave them in actually until I finish writing the pattern. They're just to mark where I was doing the shaping, which I can actually see, so I don't really need them. But it just makes it easier if I want to measure the distance between those shaping rounds when I go and finish the pattern. So I'm just going to check to make sure the measurement from the neck to the lace section is correct and the same all the way along here, so that this bit is the same as this bit. And then I'm going to check the same with the lace and then just do my final measurements and check my tension and things like that for the pattern. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Blocking is very, very important. I have a range of blocking tutorials on my website, and I will upload this as a tutorial as well, as long as it saves okay. This pattern will be out hopefully at some point in May. I'm sending it to my technical editor hopefully tomorrow, but I've got a couple of others ahead of this in the queue. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit at the moment, which is quite nice. So I hope you enjoyed it. Loads of other blocking tutorials, mainly shawls on my website, but I'm trying to do a few more garment tutorials as well, just to show how you block garments as well as shawls. But check my website, and if you have any questions, just send me a message. I'd be happy to reply and help you out. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely Monday afternoon.